What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Clone Wars Chronological Rewatch. Today, the three of us will be discussing A Sunny Day in the Void, the second episode of the D-Squad arc, which also happens to be George Lucas's favorite episode of the Clone Wars, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's such a George choice. But yeah, let's just dive into it. This brings us back from Meebur Gascon's mission with all of the astromech droids and whack, and they wind up crash-landed on the planet Abafar, which is just like this void, this big desert where there are no landmarks, you can't see anything, and they have to try to survive. And they contemplate like consciousness, whether or not they're alive at all. It's very trippy.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, though, something that I hadn't noticed before. They start the episode in hyperspace, and then they get pulled out of hyperspace because they're going to hit something, and the blue clouds turn red. And that's exactly what happens in Light of the Jedi when another ship traveling through hyperspace is about to collide with something. And I just hadn't noticed that happened before in D-Squad, but that's probably because I've only seen that episode once before now.
That is really interesting.
I mean, it makes sense that, you know, in Light of the Jedi, they're like, we want this to happen. And so I'm sure the story group is like, oh, well, we've kind of done that before. Make hyperspace turn red before disaster strikes.
It also just randomly made me think of the fact that originally the end of Empire Strikes Back, when they look out the window, it was going to be like a red galaxy.
Yeah.
There.
Instead of just a normal looking galaxy.
Yeah,
it was like a nebula, I think they talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. But let's get into the weirdness that is this episode, where they're just walking around. The theme, I actually don't think it fits as well. I think there would have been a better theme, but at the start of the episode it says, when all seems hopeless, a true hero gives hope. And there's definitely something to that in this episode. I mean, Meebur Gascon is still kind of a jerk. He's not a very good leader. I think R2 is the leader that is inspiring hope this whole time, and Gascon is just kind of like whining and moaning about how terrible everything is.
Yeah, this gave me flashbacks of in A New Hope when 3PO and R2 are just arguing in the desert of Tatooine.
Yeah.
And R2's like, I got a mission. I'm going this way. And 3PO's just like giving him a bunch of crap the whole time.
Right. It's exactly the same. And R2, it makes sense that R2, when he gets to Tatooine, is like, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah.
Let's do this again. No problem. So it's around this time that Gascon talks about like his training and how he can lead them to survive because he's been trained. And then Walk 47 talks about programming and how they're the same thing, which I actually do really like that discussion. It was also brought up in The Mandalorian when Kuil rehabilitates IG-11. He's like, yeah, everyone is trained or programmed. A droid's no different. Especially
soldiers, I would say, are absolutely programmed.
For sure. And so that's kind of the big crux of the episode to me. I think that that's what the theme should have been about, is learning how your programming or training or what have you can kind of get in the way of your conscience and what you know is right, because that's what Gascon has to let go of. He's like, my training isn't helping me. And then he sees those bird-like creatures just acting on instinct. Right. And he's like, oh, we just need to trust them, trust their gut.
Yeah.
And that's how they get out of the desert.
Yeah. It comes down to trusting your instinct, or in this case, the native animals on this planet.
Yeah. But I think that is the message George Lucas was trying to get across, and he talks about this in The Force a lot too, is just the Force is about trusting your feelings, using your instincts, because deep down you know what's right, what's wrong, what's selfish, what's selfless, but you kind of have to make yourself listen to that sometimes, and your upbringing will change how you perceive the world or the galaxy or whatever.
Yeah, get rid of that targeting computer.
Exactly.
Don't need it.
You don't need it. I always just think about how hilarious that would be. Hilarious / terrifying to be like, he turned his targeting computer off? Like, he just feels like he can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
guess we'll take a chance this time.
Yeah. It's the only chance we have, but all right, Luke. But yeah, that is what George talks about so many times, is like when you were at calm, when you were at peace, and you can listen to yourself and you know what's right. Like, that's the Force. That's how a real world person uses the Force.
Yeah. I like this episode because it gets really into like the nitty gritty of like what happens to someone when they're stranded. Like, it's like being stranded in space where you don't know what direction's up or down. They can't see anything on this planet. It's just they start going in a direction and they don't know if they're going in circles or not. And we just see Meebur Gascon completely lose it.
I think Steven Stanton probably had a really fun time with this episode. He just goes really loopy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is the basic idea. And George Lucas, I'm glad he said this is his favorite one, because I definitely took watching it a lot more seriously. Because I remember D Squad as being like really silly and just kind of like, what is this? But watching it and kind of with the intent of going, why is this his favorite one? I'm going to figure this out. I don't think it really made me change my views on the episode, but it's still fun to look at it from a different perspective. Anyway, George said that he likes it because it's THX White Limbo in Star Wars land, which is a reference to his first film, THX 1138. And there's like this 20-minute segment where the main character is stuck in this just completely white prison, and he just starts walking to try to get out, and he can't see where he's going or where he's come from. And it's very trippy, like all of the Abafar stuff.
Yeah, I like what this says about George as a storyteller and about the creator of Star Wars, is that this isn't his favorite episode because it's got his favorite characters in it. He doesn't really have any favorite characters, unless you want to count R2, I guess. But like, he likes this because of the story alone, and it's droids and Meebur Gascon. It's not like a story about Anakin or Luke or someone that from A New Hope, really, except for R2. But like,
yeah, well, he has talked about how he's not much of a plot person. He comes from like this very abstract, he really likes montagey, just weird films. And so that's why it took him like 3 years to write Star Wars, because he just struggles with writing plot. He likes dealing with themes a lot more, and I think that's very apparent in this episode. So I think he probably had a lot of fun going back and just doing something weird but still Star Wars, which, Clone Wars does that every so often, like the Mortis arc or something. I feel like that's a perfect marriage between like this creation of Star Wars with also what he grew up loving.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to keep on going with D Squad in our next episode. But until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.